Hey, brothers and sisters on the healing path. I'm Scott Giles, board certified diplomate of the National Guild of Hypnotists, and welcome to my YouTube channel. If you like this channel, if you like this video, please click the like button and also feel free to subscribe. What I want to talk about today is preserving cognitive function. As some of you know, I work extensively with the cancer community. And one of the things we have in people undergoing chemotherapy is called chemobrain. The chemotherapy agents we use today do cross the blood-brain barrier, and they affect a person's thinking and mental abilities. They trickle back when the chemotherapy is over, but during that time it can be difficult. The problems that people experience are short-term memory difficulties, difficulty with word recruitment. You know what you want to say, but you can't remember the word to say it. Name recognition. You've known this person for 20 years, and you can't remember their name. And this is caused by the changes in the brain as the chemotherapy affects how the neurons work together. Also, it can predispose to things like mixed depression and so on. However, these same things also happen as we age. Chemotherapy agents are typically oxidants. They oxidize cancer cells, but they also oxidize the cells in the brain. Aging is an oxidant too. So I know people, and you know them too, they retired and they haven't had a new thought in 15 years. And every year they seem to be a little bit less than they were because they're losing brain cells to oxidation and they're not forming new dendritic connections, new synapses in the brain. Well, it turns out there's something we can do to protect ourselves from this kind of cognitive loss. It can be effective while you're receiving chemotherapy or recovering from it, or just as you're getting older. It goes back to something called the Nun Study, done on the teaching sisters of Notre Dame back in the 1990s. Now, religious communities like a convent are ideal research subjects because you have the same group of people that you can track over time. They don't move around. They're eating the same food, living in the same circumstances, drinking the same water, so it just simplifies all kinds of variables. Well, these women gave permission to have their entrance essays to the convent studied. They took cognitive tests while they were alive, and when they were dead, their brains were autopsied. The results were fascinating. First, it turns out that the essays these women wrote when applying to get into the convent were predictive of those who would have cognitive difficulties later and those who wouldn't. The more textured and nuanced a person's vocabulary, the better protection they had to preserve their cognitive function in the long term. In fact, one nun talked about sitting down with her family as a child, and the father would get out the dictionary and quiz the kids on the words so that she developed an excellent vocabulary, and that helped her. So this is something we can all do. I find that whenever I'm reading the newspaper, I tend to use a Kindle or my iPhone, and I see a word I don't recognize. I can highlight it and look it up, and then make a point to use that word some point in the next day or two as a way of expanding my own vocabulary and giving myself longer-term protection against age-related cognitive decline. The other thing that was discovered is that, puzzles and like Sudoku, they help to some degree. But the real help is exposing yourself to ideas that challenge your worldview. We all have what's called a confirmation bias. We want to expose ourselves to ideas that we already agree with because that makes us feel secure. That turns out not to be of any benefit in terms of protecting your mind downstream. What is the benefit is exposing yourself to material that you find disturbing or challenging. See, the brain evolved to deal with problems. That's how evolution works. If everything's going fine, there's no reason for the brain or a creature to evolve. It evolves to better meet challenges. So when there are cognitive challenges, the brain tries to evolve. It forms new synapses, new dendritic connections, and they are protective. There was one nun who gave no sign of cognitive decline during her lifetime. But when she died, on autopsy, her brain was full of Alzheimer's, amyloid plaques all over the place. But she taught adolescent boys, and they kept her so on her toes that she was making new synaptic connections as fast as she was losing them to the Alzheimer's. So exposing ourselves to ideas that we don't already agree with turns out to be huge. So like I read the op-ed editorial page of my newspaper, the views that I don't agree with. I don't just skim, I read them for understanding, so I get the propositions the other writer is saying and advocating for. I may not agree with them, but I will understand them. Go to movies that you find disturbing. Now, I don't mean slasher films, but movies that you find cognitively disturbing, that make you think in a new way. This kind of challenge forces your brain to evolve, to deal with that challenge. And as a result, you don't suffer cognitive decline, or at least that's the indication, the best science we have now. So give that a try. I strongly recommend it. Thank you as always for listening. You take care. Remember to subscribe and check out my website also. There's lots of information there. But for now, you stay well.